En el centro de la pampa vive un pimiento. Sol y viento pa' su vida, sol y viento.
Hello, this is Patrick Barnard. This is the 60th edition of the Pimento Report. It's a special Pimento. We are here in St. Peter's Square in Rome, Italy. It is December 31st, 2012. And this is a program that we're making, scenes of Italian cityscapes for the year 2013.
Marilyn Gillis, I and our friend Aldo Vesnever decided to visit Italy to celebrate the beginning of 2013. Aldo has family in Trieste. Marilyn and I like Italy.
I think I remember down at the bottom there too. There's a great big street down at the bottom, isn't there?
Well, it's a street along the Tiber, which is a very busy street, like a highway.
It's about 6 o'clock at night at St. Peter's. Do you remember being here about 5 years ago in the summer?
Yes, I remember it very.
And those lovely people from the neighborhood asked us to sit down on the stone next to us, a stone bench. What do you think? What do you think of it tonight?
Staying over behind here now. We were here with Elaine and Ken and Lorraine.
What do you think of this space, this public space?
The lights all came on, and the Christmas trees and the nativity. The scene is something else.
Intera gara numero 2, già non impegna prima. Vabbè, non ti preoccupare, ora recuperiamo, andiamo in sesta. Ehi, si riparte, qui andiamo in seconda. Signolina, è stata una grande, guarda dove stavi.
Hello, it's January 1st, 2013. We're here on the Aventine Hill above the center of Rome, just behind Santa Sabina,
which is that beautiful and famous Romanesque church. And we're in a place called the Piazza Fiorello Fiorentino. And it's a place where Romans and many, many outsiders come. They walk through this park and they go up there and they look out over Rome. This is one of those beautiful public spaces in Rome, of which there are so many, many.
Fotek tak podstrzelać. A poczekajcie, ja strzelnę fotkę.
I'm standing in front of the Rome Synagogue. Rome has one of the oldest continuous Jewish communities in the world, going back 2,000 years in fact. And in the middle of World War II, as Hannah Arendt pointed out in her book Eichmann in Jerusalem, there are only a few countries in Western Europe that saved a significant number of their Jewish population. Italy was one of them, even though the country had a fascist regime. This community is a fascinating and old one. It is said, in fact, that some members of the community will not go under the famous arch in the Roman Forum that has a celebration of the triumph of the capture of the temple 2,000 years ago, and a menorah carried in an imperial procession. We're here in the Roman Forum. Several years ago I was standing here and I felt the immense power of the people who basically ruled this empire, from Britain to Syria, from Germany, from the forests of Germany down to North Africa. And I remember that day very well because I had a very strong and strange feeling of the degree to which these leaders of this empire were hated. Hated because of the oppression and brutality that was part of Roman rule. On the evening of January 1st, 2013, Aldo Vesnever, Marilyn Gillis and I went out in Rome and we joined people walking on a street called the Via del Corso. This is a very, very wealthy street, somewhat like Fifth Avenue in New York City. What was interesting in Rome is that people at the hour that we were out were carrying out, indulging in la passeggiata, which is similar to the Spanish paseo. People all over Italy in the evening go out in streets, even in the wintertime, and they walk and they talk, and they're very, very friendly to each other. As I was walking down the street, I was thinking about the crisis that Italy is now in, and Southern Europe in general. I would love to have been able to go and interview people and talk to people. I read when I'm in Italy or when I have the chance a newspaper called La Repubblica, which I like very much. And just that day I've been reading about a survey conducted among Italians, and about 8 out of 10 Italians right now are actually worried about losing the job that they have, and they are particularly worried about the future of their young people. The unemployment rate in Italy now is 11.1%. It's at a pretty high level for the last 20 years. Only once before has it gone above that. People are worried. The situation isn't the same as it is in Spain. It's not as dire, but nonetheless, Italy today is a place of contradictions. People continue to live with their verve and zest, but underneath they're quite worried. It is Wednesday, the 2nd of January 2013. I'm here in an apartment on the Via Aurelia, not that far from the Vatican, and I'm reading the Rome daily newspaper, La Repubblica. There's a dossier here which records the basic message of the Italian government to citizens at this beginning of the year. And the headline reads, "Unemployment, young people, poor people and immigrants, these will be the priorities of the Italian government." In this dossier in the newspaper, there's some very disturbing statistics. For example, more than 40% of the young people between the ages of 18 and 24 in the south of Italy are unemployed. 6 out of 10 people over the age of 65 do not have enough money to live on.
Alessa, io volevo fare regalini a Manuela, non so se
From Rome, Aldo Vesnever, Marilyn Gillis and I went south in Italy to a place called Matera, which is in the region of Basilicata. We went to Matera to look at this wonderful city where you could say people have been living for 9,000 years continually. We went to hike, to look at a river which is down at the bottom of a gorge called the Gravina, and then climb up to the other side. Here you're looking at Matera from the other side of the gorge. I'm standing here in one of the ancient caves across from the town of Matera. They say that the habitation of these caves goes all the way back to the Paleolithic period. This is a very, very ancient place that I'm standing in. "60 years ago and more, this was a very, very poor place. As the very famous writer Carlo Levi said in his book, Christ Stopped at Eboli, this part of Italy was closed off from history and the state. This was an area forgotten by the state, almost forgotten by history. What do you feel looking at this?
I can't get over it. It's beautiful. Yeah. I can't believe people lived in these caves, but it's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Looking down at the river down there. Very rocky.
I find the colors absolutely incredible.
Colors are lovely, yeah.
I don't know whether you can't really reproduce this in a camera, but I'm going to try.
But you can see why movies were made here.
Yeah. An interesting thing happened here in the middle of World War II. I asked somebody just yesterday, were there partisans, anti-fascist people here in the area? And the lady said, well, people wanted to join the partisans here, went north. But in 1943, when some Scots Highlanders came in here as the Allies went up the Italian peninsula, apparently the people of this place were one of the first groups actually to revolt against the Mussolini government and welcome the Allies. So Matera is an extraordinary place. It's ancient and old. It's tied to the landscape of Italy. Marilyn and I left Matera, we went down to the Gulf of Taranto, right inside the boot of Italy as it were, and then we went to another place by the sea, very, very different, far to the north, Venice. I'm standing here across from the Doge's Palace, which was the symbol of power in Venice at the height of its influence. It's an extraordinary building. Inside there on the upper floors you had the rooms of the Senate, of the Council, and enormously complex and rational discussions went on among the oligarchs about how to run this republic. At the same time, below those very chambers and next door to them were places for prisoners. Underneath the council chamber, there's a whole network of prison cells. They were considered advanced for their time, but in Venice, at the height of its power, confessions were only accepted if they were obtained under torture. Also next to the legislative areas of the Doge's Palace, there was a place called the Room of Torture. So the Doge's Palace is a magnificent symbol, really not only of Western civilization, but of civilization itself. Above, complexity, deliberation, rationality. Below, torture and repression. This is the entrance to the Jewish ghetto in Venice. Once upon a time, several thousand people were condensed, confined in this area. Now, about 20 people live here. We're going through a corridor into the open square of the ghetto, and today there's a group of French school children there. This is a very significant place historically, as Fabio Ismen tells in his short booklet, The Ghetto of Venice. The very word ghetto comes from this place. Ismen says the word ghetto is simply the German guttural diction of the Venetian word getto, from the verb gettare, to cast, because in the area there had been a copper foundry abandoned around 1434. We're going up here to an important piece of artwork by the Lithuanian artist Arbit Blatas, who lived in Venice for a number of years. It is called The Last Train. We're looking here again at the central part of the ghetto, past the guard box, which is there for security reasons on a permanent basis. At one point, so many people were confined in this area that very tall buildings were built. Venetians like to refer to them as skyscrapers. Here's a plaque commemorating the deportation of 256 people in two moments, December 5th, 1943, August 17th, 1944. This is ironic because the British had landed in September at the Gulf of Taranto, as we've heard. And so these deportations took place as, in fact, the Germans were beginning to lose the war in Italy.
Comandante a capitolare in quella che fu l'unica resa negoziata della guerra in Europa. Alcuni storici mettono in luce l'eccellente tattica militare dei tedeschi in Italia.
The American economist Paul Sweezy long ago said that capitalism was invented in this city, in this place, in the 8th century AD. That's about 1200 years ago or more. And Western Europe, North America, the whole industrialized world is going through a crisis right now. It has been going on since 2008, and it's an absolutely classical financial crisis marked by deep tremors in the banking system. The banks in Switzerland, for example, certain banks right now are hoarding enormous amounts of money underneath their chief executive headquarters. You will find in some of those banks, in their vaults, tons and tons of euro notes as well as gold. That's one of the things that's been happening in the last 4 or 5 years. As a result of the policies of the last 30 years, wealth has been redistributed upwards in very artificial ways, and the bottom half of the population in these rich countries is having a very difficult time to get by.
I'm here in a small square just off the Rialto. The people that you can see behind me are all lawyers. They've had a small bomb scare here, so the lawyers have been requested to leave their buildings for the moment. It's the kind of thing that you might see in many different countries. It's one of the things that's happening here today, January 11th, 2013 in Venice.
So the Pimento report wants to know, did you have a good time in Venice?
Wonderful. It was very nice.
It was fun, wasn't it?
It was fun. It was very nice.